Hey guys, Daniel Lewis Crumpton here with downloadedcontent.com. Welcome back to the CannaSense 101 video series. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, I do urge you to actually stop the video and go to downloadedcontent.com. Click on the CannaSense Total Wellness page up at the top and watch all these videos there because it's going to make more sense there. You're going to have more resources there, and each video kind of builds on top of the other, so you're going to find it in the correct order in which you need to view these videos at the website rather than having to hunt them down on YouTube. So again, it's going to be best if you actually go to downloadedcontent.com, click on the CannaSense Total Wellness page at the top, and view these videos there. This will be the fourth video in the series. The first four videos walk you through enrolling into CannaSense, how to get a sponsor, how to get your recommendation, how to get all your documents uploaded to CannaSense. So I take care of that right out of the gates. And the second set of videos, this is the fourth in the CannaSense is an illegal scam mini-series, which deals with the objections to CannaSense. Because you got to remember, CannaSense is not just about getting people their medicine and getting people well. They're also about educating, informing, and spreading the message of freedom, liberty, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. So I'm doing my part as a member of the collective to not only get you into CannaSense, get you access to your medicine, but to get you educated, get you informed, get you emboldened to exert your rights as an American. So, this is just my little contribution. So, right out of the gates, let me get the obligatory stuff out of the way. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice, not a doctor, not giving you medical advice. I'm not an employee of CannaSense, so I'm not speaking on behalf of CannaSense, and this video is not an official CannaSense thingy. That all being said, I want to jump into the main topic of this video because I think it's the most important topic of all the legal objections, and it in my view, kind of takes care of all of the objections. So I probably should have done it first, but then again, I'm a firm believer in all good things to those who wait. We live in a society that is instant gratification, and I am a creature not of these times, so I'm going to save the best for last, so to speak. So let's jump into the Drug Enforcement Administration's scheduling system and how it relates to cannabis, CannaSense, and the whole maze of legalese. So in getting my prep work done for this video series, I wanted to cross all my T's and dot all my I's and make sure I had a full understanding. I'm not a huge cannabis connoisseur. I can't tell you what strains are what and where they were cultivated. I just know that it works for me. It's a medicine for me, and I can attest for what cannabis does for me. So when I want to know about intricate details about the history of cannabis, the history of hemp, the history of CBD, and all that stuff, and the involvement with the federal government, I give Ted Metz a call. Ted Metz is a good friend of mine who is a patriot. He's a true believer in the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the concepts of freedom and liberty. He doesn't just talk about it. He actually does things in the physical world with freedom and liberty, which is an issue that I, as I've addressed previously, I think that it's an issue in the liberty movement. A lot of talk out there, not a lot of action, and it is what it is. But anyway, so I give Ted Metz a call, and the main question that I have for Ted is, what is the basis of the federal government classifying cannabis / marijuana, whatever you want to call it? I don't really know what marijuana is. I speak English. But what is the basis for them classifying cannabis as a Schedule I narcotic? And so Ted goes on to explain to me, and maybe some of you have heard this, maybe some of you haven't, I don't know, just bear with me, and if not, use the fast forward button, that, previous to 1937, Americans were well aware of what cannabis was and were smart enough to utilize it in everyday life for all sorts of wonderful things, because hemp is it's a miracle substance that can be used for a lot of things that could end a lot of problems in our world today, but nevertheless. So in 1937, you have the DuPont family that came along, and they have this thing called nylon, and of course, in comparison to hemp, it's utterly useless, so you have to knock out the competition. So the DuPonts rally together their money troops and lobby politicians who are willing to stuff their pockets to put forth the Marijuana Stamp Act of 1937. And that is kind of the first time that marijuana, or cannabis, rather, was criminalized or began to be encroached upon by the federal government. That's when you get the term marijuana or marijuana. I say marijuana to be tongue-in-cheek because it's just stupid to call it that. But that's when it started to be criminalized or demonized, and on quite honestly, on racist foundations. If you go back and you look at the history, it's to even suggest that marijuana or cannabis should be considered a illicit substance is based off of racism, and it's a real archaic type of thinking that really needs to be remedied. But I digress. So you have the Marijuana Stamp Act in 1937, and you fast forward to 1969, and Timothy Leary comes along, and of course Timothy Leary looks at the Marijuana Stamp Act and raises the question of constitutionality on the Marijuana Stamp Act, and of course there was a license and a fee issued for I believe cultivation, and due to Marbury versus Madison and some other Supreme Court cases we've previously discussed, the Supreme Court says you're absolutely correct, and that law was unconstitutional. So it was shot down. In a mad dash, you have the powers that be scrambling to get their mitts back on the substance cannabis. You can't let the box open that Pandora's got in her hand. You got to do something about it. And so what you end up with in the early 70s is the Controlled Substance Act. And the Controlled Substance Act is where a lot of the problems today regarding cannabis stem from. And so if you could, imagine that the Controlled Substance Act is the foundation or the cornerstone of a pyramid that allows all this other bullshittery to transpire in regards to cannabis. Okay, the Controlled Substance Act of 1971, I believe it was, is going to be what most of your problems are based upon. So just burn that into your mind, because you really have to have a visual of this pyramid scheme and the Controlled Substance Act as the foundation that the rest of the layers are built upon. So we want to be, pretty good researchers. We want to be pretty informed. And like anything in life, whenever somebody tells you that something is something, make sure you always go and double check them. Kind of like religion. When they say the Bible says this, or the Quran says this, or the Bhagavad Gita says this, go and check. And so one of the things you're going to hear, especially in regards to CannaSense and any objections that come your way about CannaSense is, well, cannabis is a Schedule 1 drug. It's a Schedule 1 drug. So you could take their word for it, or you can go and actually look at the schedule. So here we are at the deadiversion.usdoj.gov. So this is a government website, and we're going to look at the control and enforcement of the scheduling system here. So let's go ahead and take a look and make sure that we understand what the scheduling system is. So, A, establishment. There are established 5 schedules of controlled substances to be known as Schedules 1, 2, 3, 4, and, wait for it, 5. Such schedules shall initially consist of the substances listed in this section. The schedules established by this section shall be updated and republished on a semi-annual basis during the 2-year period beginning 1 year after October 27, 1970, and shall be updated and republished on an annual basis thereafter. B. Placement on schedules, findings required. I'm not really going to be pulling up, you guys know what the definition of words is. I don't have to go to dictionary.com to show you what the definitions of certain words are. Some of this is just common sense. But the word required means required. So, except where control is required by United States obligations under an international treaty, convention, or protocol in effect on October 27, 1970, and except in the case of an immediate precursor, a drug or other substance may not be placed in any schedule unless the findings required for such schedule are made with respect to such drug or other substance. The findings required for each of the schedules are as follows. So, obviously we're dealing with cannabis here, and everyone, it's like a knee-jerk. Joseph Smith is the true prophet of God, and is cannabis is a Schedule 1. So let's look at the requirements of a Schedule 1 narcotic. Let's see if cannabis actually fits the requirements of a Schedule 1. A, the drug or other substance has a high potential for abuse. Well, anybody who uses cannabis knows that's just stupid. And, there are several studies that say that less than 9% of anyone who actually partakes of cannabis has any problem with any type of problem that may result in addiction. Now, those of us who do use cannabis knows that's even a far stretch, but whatever, that's not really what I want to focus on. B, okay, so this is the next requirement. The drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical use in treatment in the United States. And then C, there is a lack of accepted safety for use of the drug or other substance under medical supervision. So basically, the way you should really look at this is a three-legged stool here. If any of these legs are knocked out, the stool's not going to stand up. So Schedule 1 basically has cannabis in there somewhere. That's what the gospel is according to know-nothings. However, the drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical use in treatment in the United States is really the leg of the stool that we want to focus on. So pay attention to that, because this factoid here is what Ted Metz really drew my attention to and really wanted me to understand. So make sure you understand that is a requirement. So as the conversation with Ted Metz continued, he pointed me out to something that a lot of you probably already know about, and I guess I'm just Johnny-come-lately to it, but I think it's very, very relevant, is United States Patent 6630507. And I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of this here. It says, the United States Patent Office issued patent number 6630507 to the United States Health and Human Services, filed on 2/2/2001. The patent lists the use of certain cannabinoids found within the cannabis sativa plant as useful in certain neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and HIV dementia. Now, U.S. Patent 6630507, cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. Quote, cannabinoids have been found to have antioxidant properties unrelated to NMDA receptor antagonism. The newfound property makes cannabinoids useful in the treatment of prophylaxis of wide variety of oxidation-associated diseases, such as ischemic, age-related inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. The cannabinoids are found to have particular application as neuroprotectants, for example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults. That sounds kind of schoolyard mean, such as stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and HIV dementia. Non-psychoactive cannabinoids such as cannabidol, whatever, are particularly advantageous to use because they avoid toxicity that is encountered with psychoactive cannabinoids at high doses, useful in the method of the present invention. So basically, the United States government issued a patent to another United States government entity on medical uses for cannabis. So that is something that should make all of our radars pop up. Now, furthermore, if you actually go to cancer.gov, which is .gov, so this is the government, this is the federal government, United States government here, the National Institute of Health, under the National Cancer Institute, and you go and look up cannabis and cannabinoids. This was updated April 13th of 2017. Okay, so this is a government study or findings or whatever. This is the United States government after this patent showing that there are known medical uses for cannabis. Now you have the National Cancer Institute under the National Institute of Health saying the following. Cannabis, also known as marijuana, is a plant grown in many parts of the world which produces a resin containing compounds called cannabinoids. Some cannabinoids are psychoactive, acting on the brain and changing mood or consciousness. The use of cannabis for medicinal purposes dates back to ancient times. So, never mind. I mean, this is just, hello. What world do we live in? By federal law, the possession of cannabis is illegal in the United States outside of approved research settings. However, a growing number of states, territories, and the District of Columbia have enacted laws to legalize medical marijuana. In the United States, cannabis is a controlled substance requiring special licensing for its use. Cannabinoids are active chemicals in cannabis that cause drug-like effects throughout the body, including the central nervous system and immune system. The main active cannabinoid in cannabis is delta-9 THC. Another active cannabinoid is cannabidiol. And I'm never going to be able to say that. Cannabidiol. I don't know. Whatever, which may relieve pain, lower inflammation, and decrease anxiety without causing the, quote, high of delta-9 THC. Cannabinoids can be taken by mouth, inhaled, or sprayed under the tongue. Cannabis and cannabinoids have been studied in the laboratory and the clinic for relief of pain, nausea, vomiting, anxiety, and loss of appetite. Cannabis and cannabinoids may have benefits in treating the symptoms of cancer or the side effects of cancer therapies. There is growing interest in treating children for symptoms such as nausea with cannabis and cannabinoids, although studies are limited. Two cannabinoids, dronabinol and nabilone, are drugs approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, for the prevention or treatment of chemotherapy-related nausea and vomiting. Cannabis has been shown to kill cancer cells in the laboratory. So as Ted Metz is walking me through this, and we're looking here at cannabis has been shown to kill cancer cells in the laboratory, there's kind of a long pause because he's listening to the gears in my head kind of click, and he says, so do you understand what that means if somebody tells you that cannabis is a Schedule 1? And I hope that this is kind of what resonates with you guys, and this is the conclusions that you, who fall under We the People, kind of understand. Between the National Institute of Health, a government entity, stating on their website, updated April the 13th, 27, that at the very least, cannabis has been shown to kill cancer cells in the laboratory, that alone is enough for me anyway. But when you combine that with U.S. Patent 6630507, that cannabis is also an antioxidant and a neuroprotectant, what that kind of means to me is that the second leg here of the scheduling of cannabis as a Schedule 1, the drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical use in treatment in the United States, that leg of the stool is no longer there. And so the stool collapses. And so essentially, as Ted and I were talking about it, he said what that basically means is if anyone tells you that cannabis is a Schedule 1 narcotic, what they're essentially doing is making a fraudulent statement. So let that sink in very deep. Anyone who calls cannabis a Schedule 1 is making a fraudulent statement, because the whole idea that it has no accepted medical use in treatment in the United States can no longer officially be said. The United States government is confirming that that can no longer be said. So let that sink in very, very deep. And I want to thank Ted for pointing that out to me and being able to pass it along to you because, this is a golden chalice that's really been handed down to us by the fates or the divinity or whatever. But this is something that we don't need to just brush over at all. We really need to pick this ball up and run with it as far as we can. So if we get back to the image of the Controlled Substance Acts being the foundation stone of a pyramid, that you have all your federal bullshittery based upon and all your state bullshittery based upon that gets people locked up, thrown in cages for a plant, put in for-profit, privately owned for-profit prisons, and then in probation service, the probation circle jerk for years and years and years because of a fraudulent statement that cannabis is a Schedule 1 when it does not fit the requirements of a Schedule 1. All that stuff comes tumbling down when you remove it at the base. And so that's kind of the image that we all really need to get in our head, which is the Controlled Substance Acts is the foundation for all this tyranny that's happened in regards to cannabis. All your federal laws, all your state laws are built upon this notion that cannabis fits the requirements for a Schedule 1 narcotic, and we have on official.govs telling us that that's not the case. Cannabis does not fit the description, the legal requirements, their requirements for Schedule 1. It's a fraudulent statement. So where do we go from here knowing that? That's kind of what I want to focus on now, and it's something that I call the Metz maneuver, because if it wasn't for Ted Metz, the idea wouldn't have came to me. So the Metz maneuver. What's the Metz maneuver? So I guess what would encompass the Metz maneuver from my point of view is, first and foremost, anybody out there who considers himself to be a patriot or an American or has any semblance or spark of freedom and liberty, first, personally, on an individual level, consciously acknowledge cannabis is not a Schedule 1 substance. You've seen it for yourself if you've seen this video. It does not fit the requirements. As a patriot, you should not sit there and wait for some on-high verdict from some court or some politician or some legislature to, with your own common sense, with your own noodle, look at this and say, cannabis isn't a Schedule 1, and begin to operate from that knowledge. Okay? I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that other people are going to understand automatically, because we all know that we don't live in that world. But change must begin with the individual. And if you're seeing this information and you're getting this knowledge, then that means you have a responsibility to begin operating from that knowledge. And the knowledge is cannabis officially does not fit the legal requirements for a Schedule 1. Behave in that manner. Educate other people in these facts, because they are facts. Spread the information, and then start pointing out that anyone who claims otherwise, that to suggest that cannabis does fit the requirements of a Schedule 1 or just knee-jerk, it's a Schedule 1, end of discussion, that is a fraudulent statement. To state that it is a Schedule 1 and that it fits the requirements of a Schedule 1 is a fraudulent or deceptive statement. So that's, in my opinion, the first kind of wave or phase of what the Metz maneuver should encompass, is the knowledge, the individual knowledge, and then operating out of that knowledge and then spreading that knowledge to others so they too can begin to operate from it. I would further go on to say, look, this is something that's up to you guys out there who are in the patriot and liberty movement. I'm a writer. That's my job. I'm a thinker, a social commentator, and a writer. However, there are some of you guys out there who have way more resources and ability and capability than me. I'm doing my part. I know that there are a lot of liberty-minded people out there who do have law degrees, who do participate in the Bar Association, who do go in and out of the world of legalese. I know some very good people who do that, especially here in the 8th Congressional District of Georgia. But if you're hearing this and you're in the liberty movement and you're in that world, look, I don't know all the details. I don't know all the ins and the outs of how this could be done. But I'm just thinking as an American here that at the very least, if we go back to the issuance of the patent 6630507, and we start to look at all of the damages that have been caused to people based off of the fraudulent statement that cannabis is a Schedule 1, such as arrests, such as probation, incarceration, all types of things like that. Any type of punitive damage that has occurred due to the fraudulent statement that cannabis is a Schedule 1. I don't know how it would be done. It's up to you guys to run with it and to get the ball rolling. But something to me sounds like a class action lawsuit against the DEA. I'm not quite sure how that would be done, but to me it seems like a lawsuit on a massive scale to make a statement, to make a change, and to maybe, if things go right, put an end to the drug war. I think that that would be an endeavor that is worth the liberty movement putting their attention and energy behind. Okay, sure, it would be easy just to hear this and okay, well that's a nice idea, and then do nothing about it. Look, I'm not in a position to do anything about it except for put the idea out there, maybe go on some media outlets who are supposed to be liberty minded and tell them, hey, why don't you dedicate your time, your resources, your spotlight, your microphone, your avenues to maybe creating a lightning rod for a lot of patriotic people to rally behind this who have suffered damages from the state, from the federal government, due to the fraudulent statement that cannabis is a Schedule 1, and then take the fight to them. Oh, it's not worth it. You'll never win. No attorney's going to pick that up. Well, maybe so. Maybe it isn't worth it. Maybe it isn't worth it to anybody out there who's willing to risk their neck to stand up to the government. Maybe it's not worth it. But then again, anybody who's out there that has lost somebody to cancer, who has lost somebody to depression, to suicide, to post-traumatic stress disorder, to pharmaceutical drugs, to addiction, to just absolute despair because they couldn't get a hold of a medicine that could have saved their life or enriched their life, maybe to those people it is worth it. Maybe if for those out there who have had some skin in the game and who have lost loved ones, maybe it is worth it to them to take some type of an action, to make some type of a statement. And if that comes in the form of figuring out the technicalities of how you would go about getting a class action lawsuit or some type of lawsuit against the DEA, in regards to this issue, I think it's worth it. So I'm going to put the idea out there. Whoever picks it up, pick it up. It's not patented. It's not trademarked. It's just an idea of freedom and liberty, and I think it is something that's worth our time. But if it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere. If I end up suicided or something like that, guys, Captain Kirk was right. It was fun. Hopefully, it won't be in vain. But basically, the long and the short of it is, the whole Metz maneuver concept is basically that to state that cannabis is a Schedule 1 narcotic, and then any damages that result from that fraudulent statement should be addressed. That, to me, is the Metz maneuver. Do with it what you will, or don't do anything with it at all. If you're accustomed to just tolerating bullshit, that's up to you as an American. It says a lot about who we are, I guess, as a people and where we're going to go. What else are we going to do? Invade other countries? You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I'm passionate about it. I hope you guys can hear that I am passionate about it. This is an injustice. And too many people have died, and too many people have suffered, and too many people have been put in for-profit cages over a plant. And all of us know that it's ridiculous. Most law enforcement knows that it's ridiculous, but they just do what they're told. Why do they do what they're told? Why do we do what we're told? Because we're always looking for somebody else to do things right first, and then we'll jump on board. Folks, it doesn't happen that way. It happens individually. And so that's why I say, take this idea of the Metz maneuver and first understand this is a personal thing, this is an individual thing. You need to look at this, and you need to say, it is. I'm looking at it. It is a fraudulent statement. You can't with one hand say that it has no medical use, and then ask for a patent, and then on .gov sites state that it can kill cancer cells. It doesn't work that way. I mean, we have to keep in mind, folks, that government is an imaginary type thing. It's only given power through consciousness, and if we change our consciousness towards what these things are scribbled on pieces of paper, then we can actually make a difference. But it's up to you. It's always going to be up to you, the individual, the person listening to this right now. You want to do something with it, do something with it. If not, then continue on with your life, and you're free to do as they tell you. So I might be doing one more video, which will be my final thoughts on CannaSense and the whole idea of it. But for the most part, this covers all of the legal objections that I've come across. And like I said, this particular video really deals with most of the objections anyway, which is it all stems from the fact that they have said that cannabis is a Schedule I, and I just showed you, thanks to Ted Metz, that that's a fraudulent statement. So until next time, I hope all of you guys really reignite freedom, liberty, and wellness within yourselves, and I hope that all of you just stay and be and move and exist well. Later.